Histrionic personality disorder. Overly dramatic and sensational. May be sexually provocative, often impulsive, and need to be the center of attention. Thinking and emotions are perceived as shallow, more commonly diagnosed in females. I know you are all going to be saying, I know somebody like that. Oh, I know many people like that. Okay, so I'm going to read through the criteria, the diagnosis from the DSM-5, okay? So, a pervasive pattern of excessive emotionality and attention seeking, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts, as indicated by 5 or more of the following. So, as long as they have 5 or more of the following features, then they will qualify to meet a diagnosis of histrionic personality disorder. So, 1 is uncomfortable in situations in which he or she is not the center of attention. 2, interaction with others is often characterized by inappropriate, sexually seductive or provocative behavior. 3, displays rapidly shifting and shallow expression of emotions. 4, consistently uses physical appearance to draw attention to themselves. 5, has a style of speech that is excessively impressionistic and lacking in detail. 6, shows self-dramatization, theatrically exaggerated expression of emotion. All right, is suggestible, easily influenced by other circumstances, and considers relationships to be more intimate than they actually are, meaning, you would assume that someone likes you or wants to be with you when they're just being nice and they're that type person that would be nice to anyone. Things like that. Okay, so these are the criteria. And let's see. So moving on. Okay. Causes of histrionic PD. The etiology is unknown due to lack of research. So often co-occurs with antisocial personality disorder, right? But antisocial is the male label, I guess if you want to say that. And the feminine variant is antisocial, and histrionic is the female version of antisocial personality disorder, okay? Treatment options focus on attention seeking and long-term negative consequences. So in therapy, you would sit with a person and, kind of point out and help them come to terms with and understand their behavior and try to figure out why they're behaving in this way. And, basically look at the consequences in the long term that, develop from their behaviors. And at times, they've already experienced negative consequences. So to point them out as well as future possibilities and, consequences that they're going to have to deal with in their life if, things should occur that develop from their behaviors, to affect their life, currently and in the future, as well as things that, you point out things that have happened in the past that may have put them in positions they're in right now, and to try to, stop this behavior from occurring, stop the negative consequences, and put the client back on, or put them on a straight and narrow path if they've never been on one yet. Okay, so targets may also include problematic interpersonal behaviors, right? So little evidence that treatment is effective. This is with many personality disorders, is very discouraging, but little evidence that treatment is at all effective. All right. So, narcissistic personality disorder. This is another one you guys are going to have a blast with, trying to point out and think, I know somebody, I might know somebody. In order to know if you really truly do, you have to go into the DSM-5. And even at that, I mean, you really have to interview and assess people in different ways. But you get a good idea by going in to the manual and checking out this criteria. And they're also in these PowerPoints. So, narcissistic personality disorder. The name comes from the Greek legend Narcissus, right? Exaggerated and unreasonable sense of self-importance. Narcissists always love to look at his reflections, right? So, exaggerated and unreasonable sense of self-importance. People who are narcissistic, you know, assume that they are much better than they are, and they put themselves at a level that are above another person, as if they deserve to be at a different level, and they look at everyone else as below them for many reasons. Okay, preoccupation with receiving attention. They, as a histrionic, someone suffering from histrionic personality disorder, they would also, the narcissist is preoccupied with receiving attention, right? They want everybody to focus on them. Lack of sensitivity and compassion for other people. You'll notice that many of these disorders have similarities, right? They kind of overshadow the other. So in many ways, they're confusing because they're so much alike, and there's certain things that do uh, change a diagnosis, according to, how many characteristics they have. But you'll notice a lot of them do bleed over onto each other. Lack sensitivity, highly sensitive to criticism, envious, and arrogant. So, highly sensitive to criticism. That was several of the personality disorders have that, if you noticed. And with a lack of sensitivity and compassion for other people, or lack of compassion for other people, attention seeking, these are, multiple disorders have these specific characteristics. Okay, so obviously, a narcissist will, they're sensitive to criticism. They may not exhibit, this awareness. Obviously, they don't want other people to notice that they're sensitive to this criticism. They will continue acting, arrogant and conceited. However, they do experience feelings of, insecurity in many ways, and they just display it differently, obviously. Okay, so, oops, I think I went too far on yours. No, okay, that was right. All right, so I'm going to read through this too. The criteria for narcissistic personality disorder. Let's see if I can bring it up on the screen. There we go. Okay. A pervasive pattern of grandiosity in fantasy or behavior, which means, they're grandiose, they're bigger than others, they compare themselves to, they're godlike. The need for admiration, lack of empathy, beginning by early adulthood, and present in a variety of contexts, as indicated by 5 or more of the following. So, 1, has grandiose sense of self-importance, exaggerates achievements and talents, expects to be recognized as superior, and preoccupied with fantasies, unlimited success, power, brilliance, beauty, believes that he or she is special and unique, requests excessive admiration, has sense of entitlement, unreasonable expectations. Okay, is interpersonally exploitative, like takes advantage of others. That is a biggie too with many disorders, personality disorders. Lacks empathy, is unwilling to recognize the feelings and needs of others, is often envious of others or believes that they are envious of them, right? And shows arrogant, naughty behaviors or attitudes. So, okay, that is the criteria for a typical narcissist. Okay, so causes are largely unknown. All right, failure to learn empathy as a child, sociological view, product of the me generation, right? The treatment options focus on grandiosity, right? So grandiose, you are above everyone else. You need to focus on that and explain, well, what puts you in them positions? How can you, um, how can you actually legitimately place yourself above others, and let them try to explain that to you. And lack of empathy, you need to point out how they are treating others, the empathy that they lack. How would they feel in these same positions if they were treated as such? Unrealistic thinking. So you need to point out, this is reality, this is the way you're thinking, and have, you need to have help them understand their irrational thought process. So then they can kind of get back on track, but they have to start somewhere, and just, accepting themselves the way they are is the start of that, understanding that they are exhibiting these behaviors and these thought patterns and these processes that keep them involved in this type of personality, right? The characteristics that they exhibit are characteristics that they need to understand, admit, and try to overcome. Okay? All right. So emphasize realistic goals and coping skills for dealing with criticism. So, it might take a narcissist a long time to admit that they, are affected by criticism, because they hold up that guard as if they're not. They do that to many people. They're going to do that with their therapist, at least until they develop a good therapeutic alliance, right? So as they work together, and you get to actually dig deeper, then they may open up and admit. It's difficult for them to do that, and you may have to go about the therapy a different way to get them to understand. But at least, the goals that you're going after are coping skills, are having them be able to deal with criticism. And there's, unfortunately, even at that, there's little evidence that treatment is effective. And I think many times it may be because of the client not wanting to admit to themselves that they feel these things, that they are, susceptible to criticism, that they are not grandiose like they imagine themselves to be. And they have to accept these things. They have to, put their guard down, and, they're using many of their characteristics as ways, as defense mechanisms, basically. So now they have to face the fact that they have this issue. They have to pull their defense down and be able to change their way of life, their thought process. They're exposing themselves. Um, and that's very difficult for people to do, especially for a narcissist. Okay. Um, okay. Avoidant personality disorder. Some researchers believe that avoidant PD and social anxiety are the same thing, right? So keep that in mind. Social anxiety we learned about, right? And they, many researchers believe avoidant personality disorder is the same thing. So extreme sensitivity to the opinions of others. Remember, in social anxiety, they're always worried about how they're going to look in front of other people. Remember, and I used that example of spilling a cup of coffee, and somebody spilled it, and they're like, "Well, I already did it," and then their defenses came down because they already made a fool of themselves, so they thought. So this is the same type of thing. Avoidant, they're sensitive to others' opinions. They're anxious and they're fearful of being rejected. They have very low self-esteem. Okay, these are the same types of criteria. All right. So, yeah, okay, I'm going to read through this too. So, diagnostic criteria in the DSM-5, a pervasive pattern of social inhibition, feelings of inadequacy, a hypersensitivity to negative evaluations, beginning by early adulthood and present in a variety of contexts, as indicated by 4 or more of the following. So, and if you've noticed, many of these are the same things, same criteria, same features as social anxiety, right? So 1, avoids occupational activities that involve significant interpersonal contact because of fears of criticism, disapproval, or rejection. Same thing. 2, is unwilling to get involved with people unless, unless they are certain that they're going to be liked by others. So they don't want to be exposed to individuals that they are not confident are going to like them, because they don't want that feeling of being rejected, or constant struggle of wondering if they're going to be rejected or accepted. 3, shows restraint within intimate relationships because of the fear of being shared or are ashamed of or ridiculed. So shows restraint within intimate relationships because of the fear of being shamed. Okay, so they hold back basically with intimate relationships because they don't want to ever be exposed and shamed or ridiculed. So, they're constantly careful of what they say and do so that they do not give their partner an opportunity to look at them in in such a way that they feel is demoting, like, they don't feel confident. They feel they can be ridiculed. And many of their partners don't look at them at all like that, and, don't see them in the negative way that they see themselves. However, they have these feelings, they have these thoughts, and behave in such a way, um, because of, well, we're not really sure the exact causes, but because of, their inhibitions in general and their worries about what others think of them. So when they behave in such a way that they're extra careful, right? So that people don't look at them in the way that they worry they will be looked at. Okay, so is preoccupied with being criticized or rejected in social situations, is inhibited in new interpersonal situations because of feelings of inadequacy, views self as socially inept, personally unappealing or inferior to others. So as you can imagine, this would be very limiting to someone in a work environment that could be doing more, that have, the smarts to go on and to progress in certain areas of their job, but they hold themselves back because of their worry about being criticized, right? Although they may have the qualifications that may exceed someone at a level above what they are, they hold themselves back from furthering their, either their education or furthering, their job status because of these worries. So it's very hindering. However, if they go into therapy and learn to control them and learn to understand things differently and follow through and behave differently and takes risks and chances that they find so, distressful to try to follow through with, when they learn these things, they do progress, they do overcome them, and they do advance. So it's very sad to see that they hold themselves back. And same thing with social anxiety, right? Many of these are really the same. Okay, so 7 is unusually reluctant to take personal risks or engage in any new activities because they may prove embarrassing, which is basically just what I said in a different way. Okay, so that is avoidant. And I'm going to stop because it's at almost 22 minutes. Okay, I'm stopping now and I will continue again